Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone, whoever is viewing us across the whole world. We are here to our panel discussion on SaaS revenue growth with customer success. We are hosted by Thai Carolinas. Welcome to our session. I'm going to introduce myself. I am Sonali Dunia, who is the moderator of the session. And I am joined today by two panelists who are extremely energetic and passionate about customer success. So I would like to introduce themselves and let us know what they do and their background. So Julie?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us, Sonali. I'm really excited for the discussion with you, Guy. So I'm Julie Prasovsky. I'm with Winning by Design. We are a consulting firm that helps companies with their revenue process and design. I've been in customer success for over 15 years. I started at Eloqua we started as a solutions manager. So before customer success was even the title. And after that, I've worked at a variety of different startups. I've run customer success teams, account management teams. I've been responsible for revenue. I've been, all over the gamut. But real passion for customer success and excited to chat with you. Guy, over to you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Sonali. Hello, everyone. My name is Guy Nirpaz. I'm the CEO and founder of Tutango. Tutango is a leading provider for customer success technology solutions. I met Julie, I think, almost a decade ago when we started the business of Tutango. We are originally based out of Israel, so the accent is from Tel Aviv. I'm now based out of the Bay Area in California. And Tutango serves any company from startup to IPO and beyond. Among our customers, you will find SAP, Google, Zoom that we're using right now. Happy to talk to Julie and you guys about customer success. And as Julie said, I'm really passionate about this, so brace yourselves.
All right, great introduction and welcome everybody. I have to say, as the co-founder and chief customer officer of Patagonia Health, I have worked in customer success for more than a decade, so this topic is very near and dear to me as well. So I'm going to kick this off with a very simple question for Guy. How do you define customer success? I know you have a good answer.
Yeah, I think it's its simplest form. As companies need to ensure, as we switched into the cloud for a decade now, business models are now favoring lifetime value, meaning that retaining and growing customers for a longer time. Customer success is the process or the practice that companies need to implement in order to ensure companies create value to their customers through their products and services, which leads to customers deciding, it's the customer choice, to keep going, retention, or buying more, expansion with companies. That's the simplest form. If we want a different metaphor, it's the farming and the nurturing that leads to the fruit of customers deciding to keep going.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Farming and nurturing. I know you wrote a book on that.
Yeah, so that was like a subtle plug into my book, Farm Don't Hunt. I think the key is to recognize that we're in a customer-centered economy, and customers are in the driver's seat. And if businesses want to, and they do, want to retain and grow customers, they need to be very much focused on the customer. And by saying focused on the customers, I mean making sure that customers get value from the products and services that they've subscribed to or contracted for. So it's not just about the level of being nice and putting customers in top of mind. Is turning that into action, making sure that everyone that is paying you money and is giving you contract, sign a contract, is actually being able to get the value that we're hoping to get from your products and services, and that's clearly dependent on the product and service, but that is the responsibility of the company to ensure that this happens. This starts with a customer success team, but spans across the entire organization. So for me, customer success is not about the customer success team, or not just about the customer success team. It's about the strategy that the company takes across sales and marketing and product and customer success organization, and pricing and packaging, all of the revenue decisions, in order to ensure that customers are getting value from products and services.
I'm glad you mentioned strategy. So Julie, is this what you see in the real world? Do the companies have this definition right, or do they implement it correctly?
I see a lot of things in the real world. So Guy, one thing you mentioned, which I really loved, it is about, it is the customer's choice, and it's our job in customer success to help the customers understand what you said is value. I'll call impact to their business of what they're hoping to achieve with your product or service. And I'm seeing a couple challenges out there, right? I'm seeing, we often are blinded by customers using our product versus actually getting impact. And so what we'll, so many times, and I speak to all these customer success CO teams, and it's like, hey, have you ever had a customer or, a number of customers who are actively using your products? Their health score looks great. And lo and behold, they still choose not to renew with you. Why is that? It's because even though they were using their product, they weren't getting the impact, the desired impact. And so impact could be cost savings, driving revenue, time savings, any of these hardcore elements that really drive business results. And so it's really important for customer success not to get trapped in that usage metric and that usage, like blinded by usage, and understand that it goes beyond that, and making sure that they're talking to the right people and the customers, and they're understanding what it is that they're trying to achieve as a business, and then parlaying that with a strategy of how your technology, or whatever it is that you're selling them, or they've purchased from you, helps them achieve that.
So we wanted to make this interesting. So I would agree with you and disagree with you at the same time.
Disagree, go for it.
Yeah. So clearly, if they're not using your product, we can ignore the fact that they're not getting value. So although they are using the product, so the first is to activate them, get them to use the product in a way that the product was intended. And if they're using the product and not getting the value, right, then the question is the product the right product? Did you sell to the right customer? And how much money should you invest in getting them to get the value from your product? Because they might be the wrong customer, and no matter what you're going to do, if someone signs up for Zoom and is looking for, CRM solution, they will not get it from Zoom as a CRM solution. So the point being is, there's a lot in the product market fit, and because we're talking to an entrepreneurship audience, there's a lot that, expansion and retention that is tied to product market fit. If you have a great product market fit, if you're selling web conferencing that makes you meet happy, and that's the promise of the brand, and you actually deliver on it, and everyone that uses your product meets happy, and you're going to have a terrific business, because as long as there are people that need a remote conferencing solution or remote meeting solutions, and the alternatives are more complicated or harder to use or not less enjoyable, you're going to have a terrific business. But if you as a business, you are unable to articulate what is this value, and value needs to be in simple words, not I think one of the challenges that I have with getting value from products and services, if it's lofty words that people don't understand, that they are like, you got to wrap your head around them to really understand what those are. I think it's very hard to deliver on that, because the product manager, the developer, the success manager, the customer, when their boss is asking them, so what are you using this product for? Why are we paying? And if they don't have like an immediate answer saying, because without that we couldn't meet, or something along those lines, I think that's part of it. So when we unpack this, getting value from your products and services, it's also being able to, get people to activate it, use it, get value quickly, but also being able to articulate the value in very tangible language, simple, something that is easy to capture and understand, to be successful. So I guess for the most part, I agree with you, Julie.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the obvious, right? If you purchase Zoom and you're looking for a CRM, yes, you've bought the wrong tool, right? I mean, we could use less obvious examples, but I also think that, you entered a couple challenges, right? So one is you're tracking the wrong usage metric, which I've seen also, right? Like if you're just tracking things like logins, that's not the right metric. You need to track something and you need to understand what it is and how your customer is using your product that actually drives that impact that we're seeking to achieve. But also, in another scenario, right? So we can continue on this Zoom analogy, Zoom meets a couple, first of all, Zoom works and there's a free solution. That's great. Zoom stepped up and they are probably one of the most reliable platforms, which is why they're getting such great, usage and penetration in the market. But beyond that, right, because you still have companies that are like, Google Hangouts is free. Like there's lots of other free tools. And so sometimes your competition is in the same space, but different companies out there offering the same solution. So why should they pay a premium for your solution? Why should they stick with you? And that is, sticking on that Zoom analogy, right? It's all the different bells and whistles that they have, the breakout rooms, the emojis, the integrations, those components. And so in customer success, it's about going beyond the core component, collaborating with your customer. We can use that word strategically in order to understand, okay, what else are you trying to do beyond showing your face on a video screen and connecting with your customers or your employees? What else can we do to support you? And that could be through great training programs, doing more demos post-sales. And so lots of things that we learn in the sales process, we need to continue to do in the CS process. Discovery, demos, a little bit of even selling.
So actually that reminds me, and I'm a very big fan of those videos put on YouTube by Winning by Design. So Julie, it will be good to step back and give a refresher to our audience about the science behind SaaS sales and the key moments and how they all play together in customer success.
So thank you so much for saying that about the videos. You should check it out. We offer all of our content. We are probably the only open source consulting company. We put all of our content available to everyone for free online and through different platforms. And so, there's the science behind sales and customer success is that every single moment in your pipeline. So if you think about a sales pipeline, right, it's sort of that inverse, that triangle on its peak. And that takes you through to the sales process. But, I'm sure as Guy can attest to, your sale does not stop at the close one. There's a lot of work to happen after that. It's kind of like proposing to somebody, then having them say yes, and then dropping the mic and be like, all right, I'm done, right? How much work is marriage? All the work comes after the proposal. That's what we're dealing with here, right? So you have onboarding and getting your customers to use the product so they can drive impact, and then getting them to renew and expand, and all that stuff that Guy talked about with farming, right? And every single moment across what we call as a bow tie funnel. So you have your sales funnel, stopping at the close, and then a second funnel coming out of that looking kind of like a bow tie. And every single moment across that has a conversion rate, right? Conversion from a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead, to a demo, to a close one. How many customers actually successfully onboard on time and get to first value? How many of your customers are renewing? How many of them are expanding? Every single one of those moments, you can really create what we like to call like key moments or popsicle moments to really make them special and unique, but tracking them is where the science comes. And that's where a lot of companies miss the mark. They forget to track things once the customer is closed. And that's where tools and technology, come into play, like Tatango, to help you track those key moments for your customers. So that way, when things aren't going well, right? If 80% of your customers aren't onboarding properly, aren't getting to first value, guess what? You have a churn problem and you're not going to get them to expand. So
I agree with the churn problem. So Guy, it would be good to know how Tatango helps, or products like Tatango help customers or companies capture these key moments and go through this entire life cycle, all the way from sales to first value to renewals, and that full flywheel, how does the product make that happen?
That's a very good it's a very good definition. And so first, there are no products like Tango, right? Tango is
Sure.
I'm the founder, right? I'm not like the audience. I have to say that, and I truly believe in that. And it's, you know, the market will say if I'm right or wrong. But I think if I connect to what Julie was saying, is there are a few things here. One is you got to design. So there's one thing which is called the key moments and the conversion rates and the bow ties and the funnels and reverse funnels and so forth. There's another angle which I would look at from the outside in, which is the customer, which is the customer journey orchestration, which is what are the possible paths for the customer, right? What would be the experience you want them to go through? So think about this. I call this Project Disneyland, right? I don't know if anyone or everyone in the audience have been to Disneyland, but think about a theme park that its business is to maximize revenue, of course, and selling rides and selling other stuff. But it's designed in a way that motivates the person that gets into the theme park to explore and try more and buy more merchandise and so forth and so forth. That's how they make money. It's not about someone taking them by the hand from one step to the other. There's a map, there's information, but it's basically designed experience. The experience is designed to maximize the entertainment for the visitor, and by that the revenue for the business. So think about this as, if I connect what Julie was saying, think about this concept of revenue experience. What is the revenue, the funnels and the conversion and the experience, the journey orchestration? That's what Tatango does. We help companies design the overall customer orchestration and implement that and automate all of that. And some of it is people-led and some of it is fully automated by the technology. And of course, there's no one version, one path. So there's a lot of micro orchestrations and micro segmentation that tailor automatically to specific audiences. And I want to tie this into my reaction to Judy. I don't want the audience to think that customer success is difficult. Ultimately, it's a design exercise. You design your learning, you design what's the customer journey, and then you automate this, implement this, standardize it, and then you continue learning by measuring conversion rates and measuring other and customer satisfaction rates and usage, multiple dimensions of measuring performance and continuously optimizing it. So continuously optimizing the customer journey. We didn't know that this situation happens. Okay, let's create a fork here in the engagement that if people are able to activate on their own, great. If they're unable to activate on their own, we identify what's the reason behind this, and we help them with video. We help them with someone calls them in, or we help them depending on their profile and so forth. So, but the idea is to think about customer success, and generally your revenue experience is a flywheel, where you keep on improving and optimizing. And it's not about the work that is being put into by people is the outcome of retention and expansion. It's the design work and the journey orchestration work that will maximize retention and expansion. So if we think about customer success, let's get people in and they will solve all problems, no matter which problems are going to come their way. They're just going to, this is kind of more of a support model if you think about this, right? Support, there's the request, there's a problem classification, take action. I think it's more about try to think about friction and design. So you design the customer journey, you automate the customer journey to the best possible way with Tatango or alternative tools, but Tatango has a free version, so try it out first. And continuously learn about the experiences and the financial impact, the revenue impact of the business, and continuously improve. And that makes customer success simpler over time and not more complicated over time. You can break the volume of customers from the number of people. If you that is a good way to think about designing your business versus, I think, every 10 customers, I need another person. Every 100 customers, I need another person, because I think doesn't create the economics that will allow you to invest heavily in customer journey and customer success.
Ooh, you just said so
go
much
ahead.
stuff. Can I just like summarize that for a second? Because that was a lot. And if you're not as like genius as Guy, you know, it takes, you know, we're just going to distill some things down for a second, if you don't mind. So
Sure.
one thing I heard you say that was, you know, great. It's not difficult. We don't want to overcomplicate it, right? The idea is to create a really simplified, streamlined process that captures on what it is your customer needs to do to get the most impact from your product or service. That's it. And you're right, like Guy Sedali and I had a great chat about, you know, if it's difficult, simple, it's not that difficult, but it does take a lot of time and perspective to be able to observe your business from the outside without getting called into emergency client meetings and, you know, manage your team and all those things, which is why it often goes by the wayside. Most customer success leaders I speak to are like, that is number 2 on my list every single day to start doing. You know, it's on all of our team's objectives, yet it doesn't get done because you're putting out fires and all these things that you're trying to achieve. So it's not difficult, but it is very time consuming and requires sort of that mental space to be able to observe your business. But the other thing you said, Guy, that I loved was it's not just about, you know, every 100 customers you add a new CSM, right? Because that's not, you know, that's not going to scale you the way you need to scale, and that's not how to optimize the metrics, right? So your top tier customers that represent the most value for your organization, the most growth potential, that's where you should really be focusing more on a 1 to 10, 1 to 20 relationship, right? Now, the numbers aren't the important thing here. We can't generalize and say, oh, you know, an enterprise CSM should have 15 accounts. That's where some of the math comes in to say, how much effort does your CSM or account manager need to do in order to properly manage this customer so that way they get the most impact from your product or service and they continue to grow? And actually mapping that out, right? How many meetings do they need to have a year? How much prep work? How many executive business reviews? And actually figuring out, which so many people don't do, how much time it's going to take. Because if you actually look at your CSM's workload and how much time they actually need to spend to effectively manage their book of business or their customer grouping, it's probably, you know, they're probably over by the multiple of like hundreds of hours in terms of how they actually need to effectively manage their customers. So that's where technology comes in to support it. And there's lots of things you can do to make it more efficient, but you have to map it out.
So you mentioned technology, you mentioned products, automation. So can the CSM or the customer success team be successful without so much automation? And what level of automation should they have?
From my perspective, I think yes, initially, it's a matter of scale. I really do think that, you know, when you have a very small team, or, you know, you're just starting out with a very small, you know, business, kind of mapping out the basic journey, onboarding, and, you know, onboarding, activation, adoption, risk detection, escalation management, renewal, upsell on a customer of 1, on 20 customers. I think it's doable. I think the challenges are, you know, when scale comes in and it's not about 20 customers, 200 customers, 2,000 customers, 20,000 customers. This becomes, you know, it's just very hard. When you have a larger team, then consistency, making sure that everyone is operating by the same operating model of the business. This is how we do it, and it's not a hero mentality. And I think ultimately, and that's the reason why we came up with a free edition of the Tango, I think the practice, learning how to do it right from the get-go, right? Why do you need to learn? Why do you need to go through a year where you do onboarding poorly, only to learn that the basic objectives of onboarding is on time, high quality, sufficient level of adoption, and now it's just, how do I do this for my business? So I think there's an element of practice. I mean, the customer success practice, and there's been a lot of learning. I mean, there's so many great people and advisors and content out there. Winning by Design is for sure my choice, but there are others as well. that have a good practices. So technology has to have it all: scale, consistency, and practice in it. And so, not using technology could be done. The question is, are there better ways to optimize your starting points to maximize your chances of success? That's the question.
Here's the thing though. Your customer success technology is not your strategy. And that might seem obvious, but I see that all the time. Hey, we walk in, okay, what's your strategy here? What's your approach? Oh, well, we're just implementing this tool. And it's like, okay, what's your strategy and your process to support that technology? And that piece is often forgotten about. And so your technology is only as good as the process you put behind it and you put into it. And I think there are, what's great about some of these tools, I know Tatango has some playbooks inside of it, inside of your free version, that help guide you. But at the end of the day, the reason why, at Winning by Design, we don't have the same, like every single one of our process design for our clients are different, because every single client is different. Yes, there's similar elements, right? Goal number one to onboarding is get to first value as quickly as humanly possible, right? Like that's key metric for success. What that first value is though,
minimal effort.
Sorry?
With minimal effort.
With minimal effort. Yes, good point. Thanks for throwing that in there. But what first value is unique, and also how you actually get there is unique, right? In some scenarios, it's like, doing your first Zoom, video call. In some scenarios, it's, getting, it could be like a whole executive alignment here. I know at Eloqua, one of our first value moments, at the time was actually having to go on site, which seems like so foreign to us now, and getting the head of marketing, head of sales, head of CS in a room just to align on the definitions of MQL and SQL and all those elements, right? Like you can't go forward with that. And so what we found was if they implemented the marketing automation software without that basic understanding and that unified definition across their organization, it wouldn't be effective. So same with customer success. Unless you have a unified understanding of the definitions, the metrics, the process, the technologies, you're going to scale something that isn't necessarily working. So it's a really important thing to keep in mind.
I would just add into that I agree that that's the challenge, and that's why we believe in Tatango. We invested heavily in a concept called Success Box, which are digital assets of best practices technology. So maybe it's not tailored 100% to your business, but it is to give you an 80% starting point. So if you do digital onboarding, you can start there. If you do like project-based onboarding, depending on your business and others. But I think you're right that I think if we want to we as people that care about customer success want to make the customer success successful, it's not just the technology, it's also the patterns of usage and best practices. And I think in a digital world, we can package them. So that's what we do. I know that others are trying to do similar things, but and we invite community participation for people to just contribute their own success box of how they think a process should look like, and we can digitize it and allow people to use it. So I think that layer of what is the objective and how to do it right, I think it's absolutely critical. So now answering your question around the starting point, right? I think the starting point, start with best practices. Like I came from development background. You don't start from zero. There's been giants that we've been stepping on their shoulders to start the way we've started building products and coding and things like that.
So starting point. So that leads me to my next question. With all the technology and automation and customer success, as we know, is really important for SaaS revenue growth, and SaaS has exploded in the last decade or so. Given a lot of virtualization in the last 8 months, where do you think the companies should start with their customer success strategy, tools, process to make this successful in the future?
The floor is process is your number one. right? And when you're really early, you can't define your process. You need to track what you do, right? So if you're a startup, if you're, you know, 1 or 2 customer success, people in customer success, it's about actually tracking what it is those stages are that your customers are going through to be successful, and what happens when they're not successful, and understanding that. So that starts to define your process. So, you know,
So what's different about it in this virtual world? What should they do different in this virtual world? Sorry, just.
Oh, no, that's okay. I mean, you just got to make sure that there are ways that being in this virtual world has actually made it a lot easier for you to connect with your customers. So there's things like, first of all, it's way easier to get, you know, the executive in a room, in a virtual room, than on site, right? Because they're not traveling. You don't have to worry about them being pulled away, right? Everyone is a little bit more accessible now. And so connecting with the executive, which is often something we see as a barrier, is a huge, you know, is something that we can do. But also leveraging other technology like video, right? So asynchronous communications is a hot topic, is a hot theme this year I know for us at Winning by Design, where, you know, hey, you know what, if you taking a whole meeting, like you have to do the introductions and the small talk and all those elements, you could also record a 2-minute video talking about, I just want to talk about how amazing your marketing manager is. They just helped your company achieve this, this, and this. Show your screen, show the results, send that to the executive. 2 minutes, you've instantly created connection. You've instantaneously shown them the impact that your product is helping with their company, and then give them a call to action. You know, we'd love to talk more about how we can, help you with these objectives that we heard you have. You know, if you want to talk more about it, let me know. So it's a great way to connect with, executives, going deeper into accounts and wider into accounts by doing things that don't necessarily call for an in-person meeting, which we were so reliant on in the past.
Guy, you have anything to add from a Totango perspective? No, what did you have to do in the product?
No, absolutely. I think what we all noticed is that the change is so fast, and I mean, on one hand, every day is the same. On the other hand, change is, so it's so different, and we gotta, and I think what we've learned is agility is critical right now, and companies need to be able to move very, very fast. It's small incremental improvements, but many of those over a short period of time. So if you think about customer engagement, it's not about big meetings and big on-sites. It's much more faster, more frequent digital engagement. So more touch points, digital touch points, right? So that's the balance, and richer touch points like videos, asynchronous videos, and things like this. So that's on the customer engagement, on the team process itself. It's having, and this is why I think a lot of companies are now going into technological solution into tech. We've seen amazing growth in business this year, because when you work remote, you want to summarize your decision in an engine that is going to execute your decision. Whatever your process changes with technology, it makes it easier to document the process and drive the process on the technology. And if the technology allows you to make a lot of changes, a lot of incremental changes, this is what the market calls for right now. So I think, if you ask me what's the future of customer success, it's high frequency, digital, and remote. I don't think it's necessarily going to go back into the classical on-site account management, is because people have innovated so much with the new world. It's going to be a new on-site or a new addition, but it's not going to be kind of reverting back. It's going to be incremental to what we're doing right now.
Look,
so high frequency. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to
say digital, remote. 3 things. You agree, Julie?
I think, those are some really good points. Just on the topic of change, right? So back when I was at Influitive, over 5 years ago, right, we used video as a really great engagement tool then, right? So Zoom calls, and we would always turn on our videos. Clients would not, and we would say, hey, it would be great if you would turn on your video. And the second they did, the connection between the two people was so much deeper and stronger. And now fast forward, we are instantaneously, like, everyone turns on their video. It's just an assumption now. And so it's such a stark difference from when we had to convince people to, hey, just turn on for 1 second just so I can say hi to you, to now, it's almost automatic.
Great. So I think we're almost at time here. I'm going to check if we have any time for questions. I have questions. I can keep talking because I've done this for so long. I can keep talking about this all day. So I do have one question for you. Is customer success different for B2B and B2C?
I think in B2C it's not being called customer success. I don't think it's different because the customer is the customer. I think we are the same people that order DoorDash or Uber Eats, and the same people that go to work and do Zoom meetings and so forth. So the level of experience and that we expect as people at work and at home is the same. I think there's a change in terminology where if in B2C it's being called CDP, customer engagement, that it reports to the marketing, so the journey is owned by the marketing department, and the B2B, the journey is kind of more owned by, could be chief revenue officer or marketing or customer success or chief customer officer. It's more divergence. I think ultimately the objective is to get to similar experiences. Clearly in B2B it's more complicated just because there's more than one decision maker that you got to influence, right? So it's not like choosing the email provider for your company, or even your conference meeting provider for your company. It's not any single person decision like in consumer. So there's nuances there. But if you think about the revenue experience, the part of the experience should be pretty much similar. The flows and take into account the single person making decision versus the group making decision. This is where B2B nuances are there, but from a principal perspective, and of course in B2C, the volumes are usually different for a successful B2C business. But given that B2B is also going digital and automated, I think those things are converging into very similar models that are going to be the same.
I think there's a lot to learn. I don't think they can be the same. I mean, the level of scale, like who your buyer is at B2B, right? So you have an enterprise customer, you have, they're spending $500,000 with you a year or more. Your decision maker is a committee of people, whereas in B2C, it's one person, millions of times over and over and over again. So they have to operate different. I agree. It's not really called customer success. It's more of a customer experience that we can draw the similarities across. And I think, but I do think that there's a blending, right? I think that we're learning some things from the B2C world and applying them to B2B and vice versa. So, one of the biggest differences in the B2C world is often like time, the risk is lower, right? So the risk of buying, of getting your, Uber Eats dinner, sent to you, okay, it's going to be, it's a meal. Your impact is immediate because the second it gets delivered, you get, fed and you are full. So you are getting that impact immediately. Whereas in B2B, typically that time to value is going to be longer, right? And so there's those elements, but the concept that we've learned so much from great brands around, mostly in the B2C world, around surprise and delight, right? You think about, great, subscription services in the B2C world that really focus on delight. You have like companies like Dollar Shave Club that they meet that need, they create a new experience. The B2B world is adopting some of that concept around surprise and delight and thinking more about that customer experience as opposed to just a transactional relationship. And I think at the end of the day, the most common similarity is going to be whether B2B, whether B2C, the companies that create the biggest impact with the best experience are the ones that are going to win.
So I think even if I take your example, Julie, if you think about Uber Eats, I think Uber Eats, for them to be successful, is for me to order most of my meals. So it's a recurring model. Most of my meals from Uber Eats versus DoorDash, because I can make instant choices. There's not even a concept of subscription, although these guys are trying to get me into subscription with all of their subscription services and so forth. So they're trying to create all sorts of promotions. If we think about the Amazon Prime, which is a subscription concept, the entire model there is to maximize the recurring revenue on a per subscriber basis by this program. So I think there's a lot of similarities, although the product is different, the experiences is different. But the question is, what's the product of Prime? Is the product the shaving cream that I'm buying on Amazon, or the product is the Prime subscription, and which, you know, the value is the ability to get more, you know, repeat buys and returns and same day delivery and so forth. So that's on the B2C side, going into like a B2B like hooks of subscription. And on the B2B, if you look at technology, I'm sure you guys have heard about the product-led growth, which is a very similar concept where yeah, so what is product-led growth? Is basically adopting user experiencing and trying and making choices, removing the barrier of making the initial choice of trying out contracting and growing from there. And a lot of I personally believe that the future of technology products is with product-led growth, because all buyers are consumer buyers, and that's what they're used to, what they used to do. So I think this idea of committed making decision, it's not going to go away anytime soon, but it's going to be less relevant. It's going to be relevant for the types of businesses that operate like this, but all the upstarts that want to go and win markets, Zoom included, but there are many other examples, have chosen a product-led growth path where the cost of trying something out, making the first purchase, making the first subscription could start from a single person in the organization and then grow to me, it's very similar to something that, you know, I grew up in, which is developer markets. The open source, you mentioned open source about winning by design, but the entire open source market was a strategy to market to developers that had no power in the organization, so they can try out tools like databases and engines and, you know, technical engines. They will bring them into the architecture or the corporate architecture, and then the monetization is going to start from there once, you know, support and reliability is needed and so forth. So I think I think those elements are convergent. Of course, like in any case, there are differences. You can't just, you know, say everything is the same. There are nuances based on the product. But I think, but if you like the principle, I would highly recommend for you, the audience, to experiment that for your business. I think it's a good one.
I don't want to. I definitely agree that product-led growth is, you know, done right, is a really effective strategy, and is probably the most similar thing that we get to the B2C world. And I like that analogy you use, where it's like your buyers in the B2B world are consumers. So, you know, that's a great point to hone in on. But I don't want product-led growth to become the next freemium, because freemium was a trend. I think, Guy, I think we both experiment. You're kind of still in a bit of a freemium model with your initial sort of lower end product, but a lot of companies, when I was at Influitive, we tried a freemium at the beginning, right? And it was sort of the trend thing to do in, what was it, like 2011, 2012, to do freemium, and every new company out there had a freemium model. But freemium, you know, you need to do freemium right if you're going to make it effective. And so we tried it at Influitive, it did not work. And we saw a lot of companies, you know, try out freemium ineffectively. So, you know, in the product-led growth, you know, same concept, right? There's certain ways to do it correctly. And, you know, my fear would be everyone listening is like, oh, we got to go back and do product-led growth. And it's like, you need to have the right product in order to do that. It needs to be at a certain price point. It needs to be where an individual at your company can try it. So if you need 17 different integrations in order to get that product to work effectively, you're probably not going to be able to do product-led growth effectively.
Or create the first experience that delights and excites, that does not require 17 integrations. I mean, I think there's this, you know, I guess everyone is using some sort of a DocuSign right now. It's a classical enterprise company, but the first time you find DocuSign is even when you're not a customer and you just need to sign for, I don't know, contract or NDA or something between two companies, and you get exposed to this experience of, okay, I don't need to, I mean, who am I talking to? That, I don't think I've printed, signed, and scanned paper in like 10 years. But I mean, the difference was not to do that and go through this digital experience by just signing and then saying I want to do that too. I think to your point is, and this is why I think customer success and this design is more than just the customer success team, is also on the product. Can you architect the product in a way that allows you to experiment it before you try? So clearly there are nuances there, and if the answer was simple, then everyone would have built a multi-billion-dollar company in 3 years. But I think these you would agree that the principle of the future is customer-centered growth model, revenue experience management, customer success at the core of your business. I'm assuming, right? I mean, I'm holding you hostage for this agreement.
No, of course. If anything, over the last, 8 months, 9 months at this point has taught us, right? So, when lockdown started happening and sales started slowing, right? And that's what happened. A lot of businesses, the new leads, their new logo sales dried up. And all of a sudden it forced everyone to say, oh my goodness, our only source of revenue and like saving grace here is with our existing customers. And the ones who really got that prior to this happening are the ones who are, most successful today. And so I think what it did is showed every, executive team and board team that your existing customer base is your lifeline, right? Focusing on that and making a great customer experience, driving impact for your customers, and expanding your profitability. It's profitable revenue at that point. You grow your customer base, you are driving profits and sustainability for your organization. And so I 100%, the future of enterprises, focusing on your existing customers and, keeping to feed that funnel, but that focus is on customer success for sure.
Profitability, existing customers, and product-led growth. There are 3 good things as a closing note for this discussion. You guys have been a great speakers and great conversations. Thank you, TIE Global, for hosting us, and thank you for the time for attending. We will see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy and Julie. Bye-bye.